Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition rate. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support at sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, check out the latest novel by well-known award-winning author Mia Motions. You Have No Time for Love, called Missing, an extraordinary relationship between two ordinary people based on real-life events that go through 4 countries, 2 strangers, and 1 target, where truth is an illusion and the ones you love be the first to go missing. Check out the book on Amazon, other retailers, available on all formats today. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com and over 30 podcast platforms, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, Amazon, and Audible. Coming soon to Podbean, Buzzsprout, TuneIn, Pandora, heard worldwide on Geo7, Radio Public, Himalaya, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel, and follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with a wonderful gentleman who's back by popular demand. He's been on the Mike Wagner Show, and he's got a book called Einstein, Michael Jackson, and Me, A Search for Soul in the Power Pits of Rock and Roll. And he's been called the Einstein, Darwin, Newton, and Freud of the 21st century. He's published and given lectures in 12 fields: quantum physics, cosmology, evolutionary biology, neuroscience, information science, aerospace, and governance, and a lot more. Well-known publicist for Michael Jackson, Prince, Bob Marley, Bette Midler, and a lot more. He's got 13 books right now, and here's about to give us the latest and live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plush Studios in beautiful New York. He's back once again, ladies and gentlemen, the very, very talented author and well-known publicist, and a lot more, Howard Bloom. Howard, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us once again.
Well, Mike, it's great to see you. And it's also great to see that you're on iHeartRadio. You're on, I forget what it's called, the big aggregator of podcasts. You're everywhere where podcasts need to be. It's absolutely fabulous.
I mean, it's grown ever since you and I, last talked, and it feels like we talked yesterday. But last time we talked about a good portion of book, Einstein, Michael Jackson, and Me, A Search for Soul in the Power Pits of Rock and Roll. And you also talked about some of your books. You talked about what's it like you're working for Michael Jackson, Prince, Bette Midler, Billy Joel, and more. And we covered a few books. But also just quickly tell us about what's been happening with you lately. And,
it's more than I can remember in one gulp. Einstein, Michael Jackson, and Me, A Search for Soul in the Power Pits of Rock and Roll has been named the best book of 2020 by the New York Weekly Times and the LA Weekly Times. Mm-hmm. There's a film which you can get. It's a 66-minute film about me, made by a 3-time Emmy winner, called The Grand Unified Theory of Howard Bloom. And it has now won 2 festival awards. Best Picture at the Design Science Film Festival in California, and the Best Feature-Length Documentary at the NAF Film Festival in Italy. I'm running 4 space groups. I don't know how I got into this because I hate to be pigeonholed in just one field. But Buzz Aldrin conned me into starting a group called the Space Development Steering Committee 15 years ago. And it includes people from NASA and the Department of Defense and all kinds of things, the National Science Foundation. But the most exciting group that I'm running, we live in a fractured time. Democrats are hating Republicans. Republicans are hating Democrats. And some say we're on the brink of an actual civil war, a shooting civil war. Well, you can only get things accomplished if you can work across the aisles, if you can find the points that hold people together in common, that hold Democrats and Republicans together in common. Mm-hmm. So I have a space group that made it into Time Magazine, Newsweek, the Politico, NBC, CBS, Fox News, all kinds of things back in August of 2019. And it includes the former governor of New York State, David Paterson, who's a Democrat, and a guy who is the arch Republican of all time, Newt Gingrich. Mm-hmm. Plus Robert Walker, who was the head of the House Science Committee, and a 3-star general, Steve Quast. So moving ahead, what we're trying to demonstrate is real simple. If you're concerned about climate change, if we harvest solar power in space and transmit it to Earth using the same kind of simple, harmless microwaves that this uses, your cell phone, we can eliminate all man-made contribution to climate change. We can eliminate all emission of greenhouse gases by human technology. We can eliminate the use of fossil fuels for energy production completely. And one of my partners in this used to be the 11th president of India, Dr. APJ Kalam, who's a superstar in Asia. He's known as the people's president, and he's also the father of India's space program. And Kalam used to say that with space solar power, we can lift 2 billion people out of poverty. So we are trying to get across that message, and simultaneously, we're trying to get across the message that the Chinese plan to own space solar power by 2035. They've already got their first factory totally dedicated to space solar power technology. And he who owns, or she who owns, space solar power is going to own the 21st century. Plus, there's a space economy. We don't tend to recognize it, but all those satellites up there right now, beaming down direct TV and allowing our telephone signals to get across, and enhancing or allowing our communications technologies we take for granted, well, they're up there in empty space where it would seem there's nothing of value. And they now represent a $330 billion a year industry.
Wow.
So that's just the beginning of a space economy. Now, we don't recognize resources in space, but the Chinese do. So what did they do recently? In the last week, they planted their flag on the moon. Why is that significant? I mean, we've already got a flag on the moon, right? The Chinese have a roadmap of exactly how they're going to own space and the moon by 2049. And the moon is a tremendous resource space. If you want to build real estate in space, if you want to build housing complexes in space with parks and gardens, which you can do, where are you going to get your raw materials? The moon. Besides that, the moon is rich in water, and water can be used for breathable oxygen, for drinkable water, and for rocket fuel, which is particularly important if you want to get back and forth to the moon on a regular basis. So all of that, we are promoting all of that because the Chinese plan to own this, and if they do, we will be a has-been. The way that Venice, which ruled the West for years, is a minor tourist spot today. We don't want to become a minor tourist spot. And so the opportunities up there, the opportunities to uplift the poor and the oppressed using the resources of space are enormous. So we're trying to get that across to both Democrats and to Republicans. And right now they're too busy fighting each other. And there's the coronavirus stimulus bill, which is a major focus and something they really do have to take care of right now. But when the new year begins, and we have all of our arguments ready, and other people in our group have been going from one congressman to another. David Patterson and I, the governor, were on the phone with Kristen Scott Gillibrand 2 months ago, and we'll do more of these phone calls and presentations. But that's a sideline because meantime, I've got to finish editing this book on bloomology by a French scholar, a book on my mode of thought and my philosophy, so I can write my next book. And meanwhile, there's Einstein, Michael Jackson, and me, A Search for Soul and the Power Pits of Rock and Roll. And what I've been discovering, now this may sound strange for an author, you would think you make all your discoveries about your books when you're writing them. And once you publish them, all those discoveries have been made. No, you keep processing a book for years. It keeps growing richer in you. And I realized that that book is about Einstein, Michael Jackson, and me, is about my quest as a person who's been in science since the age of 10. I started in microbiology and theoretical physics at the age of 10, to find the essence of the spiritual experience, and both to be able to experience it and to be able to understand it from a scientific, secular point of view. because it's one of the most important things we've got. That feeling of being caught up in something bigger than ourselves that transports us, that gives us ecstasies for an hour and 10 minutes, especially when a rock act is on stage and we lose all sense of our individual identity and we're just sucked into something that exhilarates us for an hour and 10 minutes. That experience is one of the most important experiences we have, and understanding it and understanding where it fits within the realm of the human experience and how we can use it for good, not for evil, because it's often used for evil. Those things are of profound importance. I don't know if I can get across how important they are to me, but they've been part of my quest since I was 12 years old. And this book, Einstein, Michael Jackson, and Me, is really about where the rubber meets the road, where science and rock and roll and what seems to be mere show business reaches the realm of the absolutely transcendent.
Yes, it does too. And of course, we did talk about Michael Jackson as well too. And maybe just to give a recap of what's it like, working with Michael Jackson and just working with the Jacksons and just a few others, just to give a quick recap. And if there's some others we haven't mentioned as well too, there's like a list. It's like I can't remember who we talked about and did not talk about.
Right, me neither. But we there's Bob Marley, there's ZZ Top, there's Joan Jett, there's Shaka Khan, there's all kinds of stuff. But let's start with Michael Jackson. My first experience, okay, one thing I have to tell you, it may sound insane. Michael Jackson is the closest thing to a saint that I have ever run across on earth, and he goes so far beyond the human norm that I never, ever imagined a person like him can exist. And it all starts with when I was 10, the thing that got me into science was having a book that opened on my lap, and it told me the first two rules of science are these: the truth at any price, including the price of your life, and look at things right under your nose as if you've never seen them before. And you might think, what the heck do those first two laws of science have to do with Michael Jackson? Absolutely everything in the world. The first time I met Michael Jackson, it was at his brother's pool house in Encino, California. A pool house is a little building next to the pool that's just big enough to have one room on the first floor and one room on the second floor.
Wow.
And the room on the first floor was lined with arcade video games, which nobody in a sane mind can possibly afford. You can't afford to buy one of them. These walls were lined with them. And in the middle of the room was a billiard table. So the brothers and I were standing around. We were standing at the billiards table. We were looking over potential merchandise for the tour. And I was trying to explain to them, look, you try to create the highest level of awe and wonder you possibly can in your stage show and in your music. You have to have merchandising materials, t-shirts, jackets that reflect that quality of awe and wonder that are utterly beyond belief. As I was in the middle of this, I could hear the screen door opening. I knew that Michael was coming for a meeting with the CBS art director. And I didn't grow up among human beings. Other kids didn't want to have anything to do with me. My parents didn't have time for me. I grew up with guppies and guinea pigs and lab rats in my bedroom. So I didn't know human rituals. But when I was 19, somebody taught me that if there's somebody other people want you to meet, you walk over to that person, you stick your hand out and you say, "Hi, I'm Howard." And other people will say, "Hi, I'm Mike," or whatever their name happens to be. I had never done it, Mike, but I knew it existed, this ritual. So I heard the screen door opening and I left the brothers. They were crowded around me. They always put me in the center of things. It was very sweet of them. And walked around the billiard table and walked over to the screen door and put out my hand to the guy who was entering and said, "Hi, I'm Howard." And the person walking through the screen door stopped and he put out his hand and he gave me a slightly softer than normal handshake, but a normal handshake. And he said, "Hi, I'm Michael." And I said, "I've got a press release I need to get your approval on. Can I read it to you?" And he said, "Yes, let's go upstairs." So we went upstairs to the second room. And the second room was so jammed with amplifiers and keyboards that, I mean, the stacks went to the ceiling. So Michael found an amp to sit on. I found another amp to sit on. And I started to read him this press release. Now, Mike, I have taken writing as seriously as a religion since I was 16 years old. I won my first writing contest when I was 10. To me, writing is profoundly important. It's how I connect with you. So when I'm writing a press release, and I had edited and art directed the new NYU Literary Magazine, and we won 2 National Academy of Poets prizes. Poetry is also very important to me, and I try to write with a certain element of poetry. But no one had ever seen that. Not a single soul had ever seen that. And I didn't care. These were instrumental things that used as tools. So I started to read the press release to Michael. And Michael's sitting on the amplifier, and I don't know if you can see this on the video cam. But as I read, Michael slumped in his chair, and his face opened with awe, literally with awe. And when I finished the press release, Michael said, "That's beautiful. Did you write that?" And I had to confess that I had. No one in my entire career had ever seen what was in my writing up to that point before. Michael saw it all. It was astonishing. Then we went downstairs and waited for the art director, and she showed up very quickly. And she had 5 of the most gorgeous portfolios you've ever seen. Hand-tooled cherry wood, hand-tooled leather. And I recognized the names of the artists because my way of escaping grad school in neuroscience was to start a commercial art studio with the artists I gathered for the magazine, for the NYU Literary Magazine. And so I recognized every single one of these artists. They were legends in their field. Well, Michael and I were standing shoulder to shoulder. My right shoulder was up against his left shoulder. My right knee was up against his right knee, and the brothers were crowded around us, pressing us in together. And the art director slid the first portfolio across the billiard table, the green of the billiard table. And it was by an artist named Michael Whalen. And Michael began to open the first page, and he saw only a square inch, and his knees began to buckle. And he went, "Oh," and he opened another couple of square inches, and his knees buckled further. He went, "Oh, oh, oh, oh." Michael was having an aesthetic orgasm. You could see.
Aesthetic orgasm. I love it.
I'd never seen anything like it in my life. And he was communicating it to my body because my elbow was up against his, my shoulder was up against his, my knee was up against his. And you could see that Michael saw more in an inch of this painting than the artist had ever seen.
Wow.
He was, there's this poem by William Blake about seeing the infinite in the tiniest of things. This is the first time in my life I ever ran across it in real life. So remember, the second law of science is look at things right under your nose as if you've never seen them before, and then proceed from there. It's the law of awe, wonder, and curiosity. Michael was that second law of science incarnate in the flesh. It was astonishing. So I flew back to New York, and God knows how many months later, I was sitting at my desk. I had a desk the size of an aircraft carrier. And because I had 7 Rolodexes, I needed that big space. And behind my desk, I had a little $19.99 red nylon knapsack. And the red nylon knapsack was packed with a spare shirt, a toothbrush, and a razor, and a TRS-100, which was the very first laptop computer. Why? Because I would get calls saying, "We've got an emergency. Here, you've got to be here in Memphis by 8 o'clock tonight." Calls like that all the time. Well, one afternoon, I got a call at 4 o'clock. And the caller on the other end said, "You've got to be out here in LA by 11 o'clock tonight. Michael is canceling his tour. You're the only one he will listen to." Oh. So I got my receptionist to get me a flight. I got her to get me a car. I slung the little red knapsack on my back, and I rushed down the stairs who wants to take the elevator? The stairs are a gym for free. So I rushed down the 5 flights of stairs and headed for the airport. When I got to LA, I went to the address that had been given to me in my rental car, and it was a little confusing because it turned out to be not a house, not an office building, a studio lot.
Huh.
And a studio lot is a weird place at night because it's totally dark, and there are these giant aircraft hangar size buildings. Those are the studios. They're huge. And they're so huge that if there's a light in one of them, the light is swallowed. It almost seems irrelevant to the darkness. But I found the one lit aircraft hangar size studio, and I stepped in, and there were the Jacksons rehearsing for their upcoming victory tour on a 110-foot stage. Now, to give you an idea of a 110-foot stage, when ZZ Top decided to take Texas to the world and took a longhorn steer, a buffalo, 3 rattlesnakes, 2 turkey vultures, it was a big deal. And they had a gigantic stage, and it was a stage in the shape of Texas that was tilted at an angle, so that no matter where you were in the hall, you could see that it was in the shape of Texas. A 75-foot stage, that was gigantic. The Jacksons had a 110-foot stage, 40% bigger.
Boy, I'm trying to figure out how big mine is. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm at the do like it's just mind blowing. Take this, take that, and everything. And I wish I could just turn this around here, but well, that'll have to be another time too.
Right. So you have a stage?
I wish I did, but this is my little stage right now. But
Right.
the way you make it sound, this is going to be a big stage. It'll have to be in my mind. So
Right.
I'll probably have to just I don't know if I'm gonna try to outdo yours. I mean, you having 7 Rolodexes, like a desk. And how long is your desk, by the way? Did you say?
Well, the desk was probably about 8 feet.
Oh, 8 feet. Okay, I thought it was 110. I was gonna say,
No. It was, it was much bigger than a normal desk, but it fit in a room, fortunately. So, okay, so the Jacksons are rehearsing on stage. And when they finish rehearsing, the Jacksons plus me all file out to a dressing trailer. Have you ever seen a dressing trailer?
yes.
So, okay, but for people who haven't seen it, it's a long van, a very, very, very long van. It's the length of a school bus almost. And the interior is set up as a dressing room. And it has banquettes, little benches that you can sit on with red vinyl covering on either side. And there's a master banquette, a master bench right by the door. So Michael took the master bench. I took the spot immediately to his left hand, and his brothers were flanking us as usual. And Michael explained something. The tour had been getting appalling publicity before I was hired. Absolutely appalling publicity. And the argument that was made in particular by Dave Marsh, who's a critic that all the other critics imitate, said, nobody we know has been hired to do the staging. So the stage is going to collapse. Nobody that we know has been hired to do the sound system. So the sound system is going to electrocute the performers. Nobody we know has been hired to do the lighting. And lighting rigs are 5 or 6 stories high. So those lighting rigs are going to collapse on the heads of the audience and kill people. And I was countering this because none of it was true. But I didn't understand, it didn't even occur to me to think of why nobody knew who was doing the staging, the lighting, the sound. Michael explained it to me. He said, look, a year and a half ago, I went out and I found the most amazing stage designers, the most amazing sound and lighting people, and the most amazing magicians that I could find. And you have seen the quality of awe and wonder that God has given to me. I owe that quality of awe and wonder to my kids. So I made all of these people sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, an agreement to secrecy, so that everything I did on stage would come as a total surprise. and give that kind of awe and wonder that God is kind enough to give to me, to my kids, because that is what I owe them. And when Michael was speaking like this, I had the first and only visual vision of my life. I've had about 6 visions altogether. All of them have come true, but this one was the only visual one. I saw Michael's ribs as golden gates. I saw those golden gates swing open, and I saw 10,000 kids in his chest. And Michael's total obligation, his mission in life, was to give surprise, awe, and wonder to those kids. I can't exactly explain why, but remember, the first rule of science is the truth at any price, including the price of your life. To me, this was Michael adhering to the principle of the truth at any price, including the price of your life. Michael was unwilling to undergo any price to provide awe, wonder, and surprise to his kids. So Michael explained something to me. He said, look, my brother Jackie has a bone chip in his knee. Well, I knew that. I had arranged the press conference that the surgeons gave when they did arthroscopic surgery on Jackie's knee out in LA. And we expected that it would be healed by now. It was now 4 weeks after the surgery, and it's not. And it's not going to be healed in time for the tour. My brother Jackie is the best dancer and choreographer I have ever seen in my life. Now think about that statement. Michael Jackson was a student of dance. Michael Jackson studied people like Fred Astaire and James Brown. He studied their every move. If he said someone was the best dancer he'd ever seen, he was saying they were superior to people like Fred Astaire. And Michael was truthful. He never said anything that wasn't, to him, the absolute truth. And he explained, I owe my audience that quality of awe, wonder, and surprise that God has given to me. And I cannot deliver that without Jackie. So I want to postpone the start of the tour until Jackie is better. And I explained to him the stories that have been coming out in the press and how damaging they were, and how if Michael canceled or postponed the opening of the tour, that would validate every single negative thing that had been said about the tour. No parent would dare take their kids or allow their kids to go to a Jackson concert on the Victory Tour. They would be afraid their children were going to die. I mean, one of the rumors spread by Dave Marsh was that since no one we know has been hired to do security, there will be gangs running up and down the aisles, cutting people up, killing people.
Ooh.
So we had to get rid of those rumors. And if Michael postponed the tour, those rumors would seem to be validated. So Michael spoke with the force of Charlton Heston parting the Red Sea and the Ten Commandments.
I remember that movie, By the Right Hand of God. And I
yes, right.
Scene. Yes, by the right hand of God.
So when you know a truth, it gives you a certain power, and it puts you on a level with the prophets, apparently. But I knew the truth of the tour's context, of what was going on around the tour, as well as Michael knew what he owed his kids. So when I spoke, it was like another prophet speaking. And Michael finally decided to start the tour when he was supposed to start the tour, and to go on with just his brothers and without his brother Jackie. But what did I see in that confrontation? The absolute conviction with which Michael lived every minute of his life, his absolute dedication to those kids, his absolute dedication to bringing them a level of awe, wonder, and surprise they had never seen before. Why? Because God had given it to him, and it was his job to give it to others, especially his kids. To me, that was the first law of science in the flesh, incarnate. The truth at any price, including the price of your life. So that's what it was like working with Michael. It was beyond extraordinary. It was utterly beyond extraordinary. And the analogy that I use in the book is, once upon a time in 1954, every sports physiologist on the planet knew with absolute precision that it was physiologically impossible for a human to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. They knew that. They could prove it scientifically. But a medical student in England and a friend of his who was a medical student decided they would take on the 4-minute mile. And they studied every one of Roger Bannister's moves when he was running to remove everything that wasted energy and get it to add energy to what he was doing. And finally, Roger Bannister did the impossible. He broke the 4-minute mile. And in doing so, he expanded the bounds of human possibility, because after him, breaking the 4-minute mile became ordinary. There are 1,800 competitive runners who have run the 4-minute mile, 1,800 who have run the 4-minute mile since then. What Roger Bannister was doing for the 4-minute mile, Michael Jackson was doing for awe, wonder, surprise, and absolute commitment to your fellow human beings. And because of all the sexual scandals that dogged the last 25 years, I mean, Michael was on this planet for 50 years. For 25 years, he was becoming Michael Jackson. And for 25 years, he was hanging on the cross because of these sexual accusations. So what Michael has to give to the world has been seriously obscured and may never get across. Its ability to expand the bounds of human possibility, to expand the envelope of human perception. If I die without telling the truth about Michael, Michael may be robbed of his ability to do for culture what he needed to do for culture, which is expand the envelope of human perception and the bounds of human possibility. So in this book, I try to get across to you the truth of who Michael was. So Michael can be the Roger Bannister of awe, wonder, and surprise.
That is fantastic. I mean, I'm in awe of Michael Jackson already. And where can we find the book at?
Well, Amazon. The best place to get it is Amazon, because local bookstores are a hit and miss proposition. Many of them are not open. Many of them are unfortunately folding. So Amazon is the best place, but you can also get it on Barnes & Noble, online, and there is something called bookshop.org or something like that, and it's a source that nourishes independent booksellers. You can get it there, but Amazon, I get everything on Amazon: toothpaste, pajamas, everything.
And helping Jeff Bezos become the first trillionaire in the world. So we're all contributing.
Yes, and Jeff, I did a piece for the Scientific American on creating a permanent transport infrastructure in space.
Wow.
And Jeff Bezos retweeted it to his followers. So one day I ran into Jeff Bezos in a bathroom in California at a space conference. And I tried to say to him, look, I'm the guy who wrote that piece that you retweeted. Well, Bezos was about to go, he was about to do a public appearance. And you know how you are when you're about to do a public appearance. You have to shut out everything. You have to just focus on what you're about to do. You have to get the courage to do what you're about to do, because it's always hard. And Bezos paid no attention to me. So that was my last run-in with Jeff Bezos. But the amazing thing, there is another story, and it actually has to do with the Michael Jackson story. The reason I avoided my 4 graduate fellowships in neuroscience and went into founding a commercial art studio was because I wanted a periscope position from which to see the myth-making machinery of the culture, the dark underbelly where new myths and new movements are made. And I wasn't going to get that in grad school. And I was going to be able to get that if I snuck around in the power pits where rock and roll is made. So I helped elevate figures to as close to a mythic level as I could when they deserved it. People like Prince, Bob Marley, Bette Midler, Billy Joel. But one day in 2005, a bunch of people had told me I had to go to a space conference in LA. Well, I told them, I don't do conferences unless I'm speaking. I don't like to be just an anonymous face in the crowd. And one person from NASA, a senior risk analyst from NASA, a guy from the National Science Foundation, a bunch of people from the National Space Society, they all ganged up on me. And they finally convinced me to come to the space convention in LA, where I ended up speaking twice. by accident. But meantime, I saw a guy speak who said this: when I got out of college, I asked what three things will do the most to change humanity in my lifetime. And my answer was the internet, alternative energy, and space. So I went to work in the internet and helped build a company. And then when we sold it, I got close to $1 billion. I skipped over number two, alternative energy, and I went directly into space. This guy was, Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
And
Yes.
yes.
Tesla.
And I had been learning that I have like an alarm in my gut. And it tells me when I'm meeting a person who's on a mythic plane. And that alarm was going off. Now, you have to remember something. In 2005, Elon Musk had never launched a thing, not even a tin can with a firecracker in it.
Tin can with a firecracker. That's been ages.
Right. And Elon, the people at NASA were laughing at Elon. They were saying he was never, ever going to get anywhere. My gut knew this guy. Well, precisely what my gut told me was kids will be using him as a role model 110 years from now.
Hmm.
So look what Elon did today. He's got this thing called the Starship. The Starship is a vehicle that will take 100 people at a time to the moon or Mars. Mars is his preferred destination. It'll take between 100 tons and 120 tons of cargo to the moon or Mars. It will change the relationship between the living matter on this earth and the dead stones in the sky. Totally. It'll change it totally. So a Starship prototype today took off absolutely perfectly. Went to, I think, about, 13 miles. And came down, did a belly flop maneuver, very complex, showed that all of its aerodynamics worked perfectly, came to settle down back on the Earth the way you've seen at this point 78, I believe 78 of Elon's rocket ships land on the Earth like something out of Flash Gordon. And unfortunately, something happened in that last few seconds and it exploded on impact. Did not land. It was not quite calibrated to hit the Earth softly. But for the most part, the flight was a success. And within a year, Elon, that vehicle will be orbital. It'll be going to orbit. And that vehicle can not just be used to take 100 people to the moon or Mars. It can also be used to take 100 people or possibly more from New York to Shanghai in a half an hour.
Wow. New York to Shanghai. Interesting.
Yeah. Doing an 18 to 24-hour trip in a half an hour to an hour. London to Beijing, almost instantly. Point-to-point travel is what it's called.
Wow.
So what Elon is doing is going to change the Earth. So Elon and I had 4 phone calls back in 2005. And Mike, I couldn't tell him why I was calling him. I didn't know why I was taking his time. And finally, on the 4th call, he said, my time is very busy and I don't really have time for these calls because we're not doing anything. He was absolutely right. I didn't know about the alarm in my gut that went off for mythic people. I only saw that in retrospect, looking back at my career, working with Prince and Michael Jackson and all kinds of people like that. These days with Newt Gingrich and the former governor of New York State and Buzz Aldrin, and it goes on and on. I don't know why people of superstar status are sometimes attracted to me. I'm lucky. But if I had known why I was calling Elon, I would have told him that I was talking to him because I knew he was a mythic figure. I would have told him that it was because kids 110 years from then would be following his role model. Heck, I look at his role model all the time. He inspires me. Well, Michael Jackson is on that mythic plane, and he hasn't been given a chance to become the myth that he should because of all these probably bogus sexual accusations.
It all sounds like he's being crucified. And who are some other myths that you see coming up along the way, and you've also talked about besides Elon Musk and Michael Jackson?
I haven't spotted any. We live in an era cleansed of myths, and it's cleansed of myths for a reason. The people in the entertainment industry, when I was in that industry, I said, you've got to get rid of terms like market. You're talking about other human beings you are trying to reach, not a market. You've got to get rid of terms like product. When a writer puts out a song, his whole fucking soul is in that song. That is not a product by any stretch of the imagination. And you know that I used to preach in the music industry that we are not selling exchanges of pieces of plastic. Back in those days, records were on vinyl. We are not selling products like a cornflake. We are selling exchanges of human soul. And I would tell the people who wanted to work with me, unless you understand that, I'm not the right person for you. Well, there is no one preaching that in the entertainment business today. So artists like Ben Harper, who's an incredible singer, are being commodified. They're being turned into commercial products. They're being given ginger ale sponsorships and automobile sponsorships. And the result is we are losing our myths. Myths come from that authentic source inside of a person that speak authentically every day of the week. Elon does that in every one of his tweets, in going on the Joe Rogan show and smoking a joint and drinking alcohol. I don't approve of either of those things. I mean, I don't do them, but he does. And in being his fucking goddamn self, no matter what. And in revealing himself day after day. Look how Jeff Bezos is getting into the space business. Everything he does is a secret. Everything he does is held up by his desire for perfection. Well, guess what? Elon tests every vehicle he possibly can. He does it publicly. When it blows up publicly. He learns from the experience. And the next time he flies, he's rejiggered his craft to avoid all of those catastrophes. Every catastrophe is a blessing. Every catastrophe is a learning experience. What Jeff Bezos calls perfection is perfection meeting the standards in his mind. I'm sorry, it's not just the standards in your mind that count. It's the standards of reality. And unless you are testing week by week by week, unless you are blowing things up, as Elon says, unless you're blowing things up, you're not being sufficiently innovative. So Jeff Bezos, by not testing his vehicles and by not doing it publicly, is demonstrating a very old style of leadership. Elon is demonstrating a new style of leadership where you just mass produce the vehicles that you plan to use so that when one vehicle explodes, you've got another. You can roll out to the launch pad, you can rejigger that vehicle, you can improve it, you can make all the improvements that have been demonstrated by all of the instrumentation on that last explosion to make sure the next one doesn't explode. And your ultimate test is not the perfection of your own mind, it's the perfection of reality. Again, where the rubber meets the road. So Elon is teaching us an entirely new way for an industrialist, an innovator, and an inventor to integrate with the public, to bring the public along on his journey, to let them learn the basic lesson, which is try, never give up, and learn from every single failure. And he's doing that without preaching. He's doing it by example. So Elon is living up to the alarm in my gut that said that he is mythic. Because on the one hand, we have a president who's taking things in the opposite direction. And we have Elon who's showing you that you can pursue an impossible vision. He wants a city on Mars before he dies. He says, it's fine to be born on the Earth, but I'd rather die on Mars. Yeah, so his vision is a very big vision. And today in the American landscape, he's the only really vast visionary we've got, because Bezos has a big vision too, but he's not doing it the Elon way. And the Elon way is far better than the Bezos way.
And of course, rightfully so as well too. And what's coming up for Howard Bloom and more, we'll find out Well, first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, check out the latest novel by well-known award-winning author Mia Motion Zia of No Time for Love, called Missing, an extraordinary relationship between two ordinary people based on real-life events that go through 4 countries, 2 strangers, and 1 target, where truth is an illusion, and the ones who love the be able to first go missing. Check out the book on Amazon of the retailers, available on all formats today. Also, The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com and over 30 podcast platforms, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, Amazon Audible, and coming soon to Podbean, Buzzsprout, Pandora, and TuneIn, and heard worldwide on Geo7, Radio Public, Himalaya, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel, and follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with author Howard Bloom of Einstein, Michael Jackson, and Me: A Search for Soul in the Power Pits of Rock and Roll, the Mike Wagner Show. And he's been called Einstein, Darwin, Newton, and Freud of the 21st century. And he's talked a lot about things, and just very interesting about the visionaries and Elon Musk and more. And what can we expect from you in 2021 and beyond? And what are some of your predictions for this coming year?
Well, I hope we don't have a civil war. There is a possibility that Donald Trump, Donald Trump has been urged by some of his followers, including a lieutenant general named McHenry, to call out the troops, declare martial law, declare a state of emergency, suspend the election, throw all of the fraud claims to military tribunals, and keep Donald Trump in power until all of the election is investigated, which will take, guess what? Another 4 years, approximately.
I was just going to say that. I thought it's going to stretch like maybe 8, 12, 16, 20, and maybe go back to things like King of England, where it's where he could rule as long as he wants or until he's dead.
Right. So that's a very serious possibility. And you know that Brad Parscale last summer, who was running Trump's campaign at the time, called for a Trump dynasty. In other words, when Donald Trump is no longer able to hold office or loses interest, one of his children, probably Don Jr. or his daughter, Ivanka, will move into the White House. It'll be, you know, that Donald Trump hugely admires the leader, the great divine father of Korea, Kim Jong-un,
yeah.
and would dear.
You mean the great father who's like half his age, younger, and eats Snickers just to calm down? The great father? Seriously?
Yes, the beloved Kim Jong-un.
I won't call him the great father or anything. It's like great son. It's like, you may be half the age, but eat a Snickers, damn it.
Right. At any rate, he admires that approach. When Xi Jinping made himself dictator for life of China, Donald had a fundraising lunch for insiders at Mar-a-Lago. And he said, look at what Xi Jinping just did. That's a great thing, except I can't say it the way he said it, because he said it with his words swelling with admiration. And he said, maybe we should try that here. Now, you can easily say, but he was just joking. I'm sorry, Donald Trump doesn't joke. Every joke he makes is a serious thought. And he's just waiting for somebody to pick up on it and encourage him to do it. So, you know, this democracy that I love with freedom of speech and pluralism. Let's hope not. But here's what's on my plate. The film, The Grand Unified Theory of Howard Bloom, shows me meeting the guy that I am, in my will, I'm giving my.
Okay. Okay, we're having some technical difficulties with Howard Bloom here. So, Howard, are you still with us here? Howard, are you still with us?
In my lap, the first rule of science, the truth at any price, including the price of your life, for that, it gave the example of Galileo. And for look at things run under your nose as if you've never seen them before and then proceed from there, it gave the example of Anton von Leeuwenhoek, the guy who invented the microscope, turned it down on pond water and discovered that it was filled with microscopic animals that he called animalcules. A total revelation that we had been sharing the planet all this time with these microbial creatures. So these two guys reached out over a distance of 350 years and saved my life. So my obligation is to reach out over a distance of 350 years and save the next confused kid.
And,
that's that. So that's what the Howard Bloom Institute is about. So a bunch of extremely talented, very high level people reached out to me and said, we saw that you want to start a Howard Bloom Institute in your film. Can we help? So they have formed a committee, and the committee includes people from Dubai, Germany, London, Pennsylvania, LA, and New York City. And they're working together to make this Howard Bloom Institute a reality. So
that is amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that's on the horizon right now, and it's developing very rapidly.
No.
I have to finish editing a book on my way of thought, Bloomology. There's a scholar in France who's been putting this together for years. And once I finish editing that, I can get to work on my next book, which is The Case of the Sexual Cosmos. Everything you know about nature is wrong. And I can't wait to get to work on it, but it's going to take months, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And I appear on 545 radio stations every Wednesday on Coast to Coast AM, which is the highest rated overnight talk radio show in North America. And tonight I have to go on about COVID and suicide.
Okay, we'll certainly be listening for that as well, too. And we'd love to have you back on in 2021. We'll talk more about the Howard Bloom Institute, your new books and everything else, and your movie. I mean, you got some great stuff. I'm definitely looking forward to 2021, and I'm working on trying to pencil you in here on the Mike Wagner Show. And Howard, big thank you for your time as always. I mean, you're always amazing. And once again, tell us what's your website, how can people reach you, and where can people purchase your books?
Well, it's howardbloom.net. That's howardbloom.net, BLOOM. And Howard Bloom is all one word. And you can get my books on Amazon. Simply plug Howard Bloom into Amazon, and it'll give you all 7 of my books. And I will see you soon on the Mike Wagner Show with the next episode in this exciting soap opera.
Soap opera indeed. It's just like, what's he going to talk about? Find out. Except we don't have a laundry detergent sponsor. Maybe we'll have to invent one. So once again, Howard Bloom, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely great. Looking forward to having you again soon. Do us a favor, keep us up to date. We'd love to have you back in 2021, and always keep in touch and always keep me up to date. You're always
Mike, you're a pleasure. Wait, we got to get that thumb in the frame. Okay, see you soon.